Greetings loved ones and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you my favorite story I've ever told, which is the story of the birth of my daughter Corvidia, who is asleep at my feet in her little bouncy seat. That rhymed. And she was born on May 23rd at 4:25 in the morning, and she was 8 pounds 4 ounces and delivered safely here in our bedroom. So I want to talk about that today, just giving you the whole tale of my home birth, because it was amazing. It was truly amazing. I don't know if that's like a spoiler or something for this story. I mean, I'm going to be giving you all the nitty-gritty details, but really I just loved watching positive birth stories when I was pregnant, and I hope that this will serve as that for some of you if you want to give birth. And even if you don't, I hope this just serves as some entertainment or as a reminder of all of the amazing things that the human body can do, right? And before I get into the tale, I just want to say too that I always knew that I wanted to have children, but I didn't know that I wanted to have a home birth until I got pregnant. And it actually took me a pretty long time to find home birth midwives that were in my area, that were available for my birth time, you know, because they only accept a certain amount of birthing people for a month so that they can be there for all of their clients, obviously. And I just lucked out when I found Sacred Birth Midwifery. They serve Western Mass as well as Southern Vermont, and I cannot recommend them enough. Tanya and Rebecca, if you're watching this, I love you so much. Seriously, if any of you are in the area and you're thinking about having a home birth, reach out to them and tell them I sent you, okay? They just feel like my cool moms now, but not even that. They feel like, I don't know, like my mentors and really just my friends. So it's really weird, like after you give birth and you become so close over, you know, your gestational period with your birth workers, and then you pop your baby out and you're like, well, what now, you know? But they told me at my postpartum visit that the door is never closed. They answer all of my questions day and night. If I text them a random question about, I don't know, baby poop, they're like, yep, normal. And I just had a really, really great home birth experience, so wanted to share it with all of you today. I have my whole birth story in my notes, and if I'm looking down at my phone, that's why, is because I need to recall everything. I wrote this down like hours after I gave birth because I knew that I would forget the little details. And then I fact checked it with my midwives and looked at like call and text receipts for certain times that things were happening. And I asked my husband Finley as well to remind me about certain things. So this is the accurate story. Let's rewind to May 22nd. So it was about 4:20 p.m. and my water broke while I was lying in bed, and I was just like telling Finley a story, and I felt a rubber band pop sensation inside of me, and I looked at him wide-eyed and I was like, I think my water just broke. And when I stood up, nothing was coming out. So I went to the bathroom and still nothing was coming out. I just peed. And I like called to Finley from the toilet and I was like, maybe it didn't break, but I'm gonna put on a panty liner just in case. And I love that I thought that a panty liner would be enough for all of my amniotic fluid. Like, why did I think that? I should have put on a maxi pad, okay? But then after I stood up and came out of the bathroom and was kind of like walking around the bedroom being like, oh, so antsy, like, did that just happen? I don't know. Should I text my midwives? I felt the feeling, but I don't feel anything coming out. And then something started trickling out and I was like, okay, I should definitely text my midwives. And so I texted our group chat, and then Tanya called me around like 4:23. So it was really just like a 3-minute period of being like, I don't know what happened. And I want to say too, I did get some clips throughout this process, so I'll put in whatever clips I got.
Hello. Upon editing this video, I realized that basically for the later half of the clips that I got, we were playing music, so anything that I include in this video is going to be muted just so that I don't get copywritten, but I'm going to include, bless you, bless you, but I'll put all of the unmuted clips onto my Patreon as well as just like longer clips. So there's going to be a lot of bonus content on the old Patreon. I think I bring it up in this video probably like 3 times. So you have various offerings over there to go find if that fits your fancy. All right. Love ya.
But there were definitely times that I did not film because it was the last thing on my mind. You know what I mean? And Finley got some clips for me at the end as well as my mom. But for the most part, I was just kind of filming myself at like the very beginning of labor before it got very intense and I had other things to do. and focus on. It is 4:30 on May 22nd, and I'm 100% sure that my water just broke. I'm putting on some boxers now in a bra because it's very, very hot out. One of my midwives, Tanya, called me and basically gave me the 411 on what to do. Now I've just been feeling small, like fluid rushes, I guess.
Trickles, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so what I would suggest, and what, does it have any color if you've looked at the fluid rushes?
Let me see. Not really any color, no.
In your birth kit, there is a plastic bag that has the long swab in it. And what you're gonna do is you'll open that up and then you'll roll it along the panty liner, or if there's a dribble on your leg, something like that. You don't put it in your vagina.
Okay.
But yeah, just because you don't want any mucus to obscure it. And you can send a picture of that to us. Sometimes you have, like I think we talked about at the home visit, an outer layer of a bubble pop, and there's some fluid in it. You feel it for a little bit and then it stops.
Okay.
And other times, you know, you're ruptured and your water breaks and it's great. And other times, you know, there's just really thin cervical fluid that seems sort of like amniotic fluid. But from what you're describing, the feeling of a pop and that expectation, it probably is what it is.
Yeah.
Either a bubble or the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah, and while you were talking, I felt like kind of a bigger gush.
Just to know ahead of time, and if that swab does turn like a slate blue gray, nothing in the vagina now, everything just out, and then wiping from front to back, hydrating lots. I'm assuming you're feeling the baby wiggle here and there.
Yeah, and I left like a puddle on my bed. I'm gonna go get the test swab. And then I stood up and I just dripped everywhere. So 100% think that my water just broke. Well, I don't think, I know. So I'm just gonna put like a pad on. Oh, yay, she's coming. But yeah, so Tanya called me at 4:23 and was just talking about like the sensations that I was feeling and kind of walking me through what to do if my water had broken, because I was still kind of uncertain. I was like, I don't know, am I just peeing myself? But it was a different feeling than peeing. So if your water ever breaks, just keep that in mind. Like, it doesn't feel like you're pushing out a pee. It feels like you're not pushing anything out. It's just trickling out of you. And when you have a home birth with midwives, like they'll send you a link to order birth kit supplies. I actually filmed an entire video on my Patreon of what's inside that birth kit if you're curious about that. But they're not just like, good luck, you know, and you're not raw dogging it. You have things to help. So I used the little test swab, and it was a yellow swab, but then it turned black, and that meant that it was indeed my amniotic sac breaking. And Finley was downstairs at this time because we had gotten a new refrigerator delivered on this day. And so I told him, like, even though all of this was happening and while I was on the phone with Tanya, I was like, go set up the fridge, because I had made like a bunch of postpartum snacks and those were in the freezer and they needed to be transferred, and it was just like a task for him to do. So while Finley was distracting himself with the fridge task, I went about distracting myself upstairs in our bedroom, because it was like 90 degrees this day and I'm very sensitive to the heat. I'm already getting sweaty in this bedroom right now because I had to turn my AC unit off. But on the day of my birth, we did not have the AC unit in this bedroom cleaned, and so I needed to like clean and change the filter and wipe it down because I knew that this room needed to be cooled off. So I was doing that, and I was just kind of cleaning my space and doing laundry and listening to music and just like bouncing on my birth ball.
My baby knows what position to be in for birth, and I trust their judgment. My little lady. I am prepared to completely let go of my inhibitions during labor.
And I had actually written my dream birth out in my notes the night before my water broke. So I knew that birth was kind of imminent that night. I just said that to my mom and my husband. I was like, I don't know, I just feel like birth is imminent. So when I was going to bed that night, I was like, probably need to write down my dream birth plan, which was an exercise recommended to me by my midwives, but they had recommended it like months prior and I had never done it. So when I said to other people that birth was imminent, I said, probably time to do that. And then I actually posted it on my Patreon. So if you're curious and you want to read all of that, then you can go do that. But a lot of what I wrote out was just like that I wanted to focus on menial tasks to distract myself. So I was just doing all of that. And then I called Finley up after that because I needed his help to make our sandwich bed. And obviously most people don't know what that is, but it's nice sheets on the bottom for postpartum, and then a shower curtain liner in between to make it waterproof, and then old sheets on top of that you can get dirty if you end up birthing in the bed. Oh my God. Whew. feeling it. Right, dogs?
Are you drinking your water?
No.
Do you want me to heat up some food for you?
Yeah, I brought up my electrolytes. I'm almost halfway done, and then I had my smoothie too. But I need to have like something more substantial. You dogs are very patient for getting on the bed. Just rocking in my little rocking chair.
You guys can hop on.
You can get on if you want. No one really minds. Wow. Larry said he'll just stay on the basket for now. And during this time when we were making the bed, Finley and I were both just like so giddy and excited, like, wow, it's really happening. And he kept poking fun at me to get me to laugh because I was also like getting to be a little bit uncomfortable during this time. And he was poking fun at me because I had written in my birth plan that I wanted to make cake balls as like a post-birth celebration treat for my midwives and all the people in the room, my mom and my husband, and not the dogs because they were gonna be chocolate, but he was making fun of me like, why aren't you downstairs making your cake balls? Like, obviously I was already so uncomfortable that we both knew that it wasn't going to be happening, but I truly didn't feel like that was possible because my contractions came on so hard and fast. Like, I did not expect that. I thought early labor was gonna be like reasonably chill, but for me it was like 2 to 3 minute apart contractions, and my midwife said that that was normal. And then Finley came up to fuel me with a sandwich and electrolyte water at around 6:30, and I finished those, and then he started to kind of clean up this birth space and set up the birth tub around like 7. My contractions seem to be getting closer together. So I texted my midwives, and I'm gonna text my mom soon too because she's about 20 minutes away.
What did the midwife say?
I said, my contractions seem very close together. Finley is going to start setting up the birth tub. I'm going to time the next one, but they're definitely closer together than I expected. Rebecca said, as labor starts, they can be a few minutes apart as everything coordinates. Do they last 20 to 30 seconds? Are they still light? And I said, yes, they last about 30 seconds. They're feeling light enough for me to talk through. And she said, this is just lovely early stuff that thins you. It's much more about intensity than frequency. And I said, okay, they're about 3 minutes apart at the moment, wrapping around my back and such. She said, okay, as long as you can walk and talk and sway, keep it chill with music, giggles, etc. Finley can set up the birth pool, but wait a bit on filling. I feel them getting stronger. I need to finish folding my bandanas. And my mom was also staying close by for like the end of my pregnancy as well as my birth. And so I texted her around 7:15 to let her know about the progression. And if you're wondering why I didn't text her immediately when my water broke, it's because it's pretty normal in first time labors for your water to break and then there'd just be like hours of waiting. So I was just holding off on having more people come over here until my contractions were stronger or until I felt like I needed to surrender and just have other people here to kind of anticipate my needs, if that makes sense. But she did let me know that she would come over whenever I wanted, and I was fine just laboring with Finley and the dogs to start. And it was the same case for my midwives. Like, I didn't text them immediately to come over when my water broke. Like, we were just kind of keeping each other updated, and you know, I was asking them questions and yeah, just giving them the 411. But otherwise I was just chilling until 7:30 when I was not chilling anymore because I got sick and I threw up my sandwich, and I was bummed about that because I was like, well, that was my dinner, and I was worried that I wouldn't feel like eating again after that, and I didn't. But thankfully I at least didn't continue to get sick. I just kept getting hiccups instead, and I continued having contractions while I was going back and forth between the toilet, my birth ball, and our bed. And I also took a shower for some hydrotherapy around this time to relieve the pressure on my back. And when I got out of the shower, I realized that I was beginning to lose my mucus plug and have bloody show. So I put on a maxi pad. It's about 8:30 now. I threw up about an hour ago. I lost my mucus plug and I had bloody show as well. So that's all happening. I'm also getting like the shivers every now and again, even though it's not even cold in this room. It's just
normal with the AC on. I had my sandwich but wasn't able to keep it down, so I'm just trying to hydrate and get my electrolytes in, and I'm hoping I'll be able to rest so that I'm not sleep deprived for the baby pushing around. That's my update. 4 hours or so into labor.
And Finley anticipated that I was getting to be a little bit more unwell at this time, so he just came up and he was doing like all of the counter pressure techniques that we had learned in our birth class. So he was doing like hip squeezes, which felt amazing, and you can like rub a tennis ball on your back too to relieve some of that pressure. And he also was just trying to distract me around this time, so he sat in my nursing chair over here and started playing guitar, and we were just singing, and I was just trying to sway and like hum and all that kind of stuff. Just keep moving. Finley was just playing music in here in the rocking chair, which was very nice. I'm having a lot of trouble regulating my body temperature, especially with the nausea. Like I just get those waves where it's like shivers and then put on a sweatshirt and then I'm like, oh, never mind, I don't want the sweatshirt. I also, when I was just lying down just now, I was like, I cannot lie down. It feels so uncomfortable. So I'm just kind of swaying. That's what I've been doing. Getting on my birth ball. I'm trying really hard not to tense my hips because my contractions wrap around my back.
Break out the WD-40. Jesus, squeaking hinges. Can't have a baby hearing that.
No. And then eventually I tried to lie down on my side in the bed despite being pretty uncomfortable in that position. And my mom FaceTimed me when I was lying there during a contraction, and that was around 8:50. And she said she'd come over. And after my birth, she told my sister that she just saw me and she knew that she was needed. And I actually didn't even remember that my mom called me until I was talking to my sister after my birth and she told me that. And I was like, oh yeah, mom did call me. I probably looked wild on the phone, just lost in a contraction. And then Finley suggested that while we wait for her, we go walk around the yard. And so I put on a robe and went out there. And some of you guys know this, but our pet pig Peach passed away in early April. And so we went and visited her grave, and she was a real strong lady. So we just asked for her to transfer me some of her strength. And we were just, yeah, walking around the yard. And I remember looking at the bright full moon and just laughing out loud to myself, because I was like, of course I'm having a baby on a full moon. Like, this just makes so much sense for me because of my love of the moon, you know? And also around this time, I was feeling pretty out of it. And Finley was just guiding me wherever I needed to go, just interlocked with me, just being like, what if we went over here? What if we went and visited with Ducky, our other pig, for those of you who don't know? And we were doing that for a while, and I remember sitting on the steps with him and just talking to him, and then I was like, I think I need to go inside, because also there was a lot of mosquitoes. And then when we got inside, Finley asked if I wanted to watch a show in bed because he knew that we both needed to rest as it was getting later into the night. And I just knew that I wouldn't be able to fall asleep because of all of the feelings I was feeling in my body. And so I texted my midwives that, and they were like, you should just try to put a pillow between your legs and kind of rock back and forth through the contractions, like mimicking how a peanut ball, you know those birth balls that are like shaped like peanut? I didn't have one of those, but it was kind of to mimic that sensation. But we watched The Office while I let all of the waves of contractions rush through me. And my mom arrived around this time, like 9:30ish, and said that she would just be downstairs if we needed anything. Laboring in my bed was definitely the most difficult part of the process for me. Like, it's just the part that I remember the most, being so uncomfortable. So I was just laying in bed moaning, and Finley was like holding my hand or holding my arm and just kind of reminding me of my strength while I was just like, you know? And the dogs were also cuddling me too, which was so cute because I honestly thought that they might get scared as I started to get louder, but they stayed for my entire birth, just checking up on me, which is great. And Rue is still right here, and she's a great second mom to the baby, and she was very involved during my pregnancy as well. So I highly recommend having some support animals in the room with you while you're giving birth. I know you can't do that if you aren't birthing at home, but it was really great.
At least somebody's comfortable. Yeah.
Very comfortable.
And if I could describe the sensations of my contractions, it kind of felt like somebody was holding my hips and like pulling them apart and then pushing them back together. And that was just happening over and over and over. Like they would begin like menstrual cramps in my uterus, and then they would slowly wrap around my back and then down to my butt. And I soon started shivering very hard until my teeth were chattering as they came and went. And I had a lot of difficulty regulating my body temperature. I needed a wet, cold rag on my forehead after they passed because I was so hot and sweaty. But then I would get so cold when they started to come back on that I needed a sheet to cover me and keep me warm because it felt like a blanket was too much. But bed laboring was seriously becoming so strong at this point that I knew it was time to call my midwives to come over, as I was timing my contractions and they were still just 2 minutes apart and I felt them getting a lot more intense. So I called Rebecca at 11:22 p.m. and she stayed on the phone with me to hear me through a contraction, and I was sitting on the toilet. Sitting on the toilet. Sitting on the toilet and flush. I'm sorry. But after a rush, I told her that I wanted her to come over, and she arrived around midnight. And I had waited so long to tell her to come because honestly, a lot of labor is just people watching you. And I didn't know how many people I needed to watch me when it was just Finley and the dogs. It felt fine, you know? And that's why I hadn't called my mom to come up from downstairs or anything either, because I was just like laying there, and it's like nobody can really do anything for you other than just like watch you and hold your hand or like do counter pressure, you know? And Finley was fulfilling all of that for me. But once contractions became way stronger and very frequent, I was like, all right, I need a little assistance. Also because I knew that Finley needed to start filling the birth tub and I needed Rebecca to take his place supporting me. I also didn't really know how long it had been in the entire labor process because I really had no concept of time other than us timing my contractions and being like, ooh, I think these are getting a little bit closer, you know? So it didn't really occur to me that I had labored alone with Finley for like 7 hours, but I suppose I did. And then when Rebecca came over, she met me in the bathroom and I was sitting on the toilet again. And I said, I don't know what I want, because the bed labor felt so uncomfortable. And sitting on my birth ball felt like too much pelvic pressure, and I had switched to like kneeling over it or just like standing and walking around the room. And I also kept feeling like I needed to poop. So that's why I would go and sit on the toilet through a contraction, but I wasn't actually having any bowel movements. I was just sitting there, and I knew I just had to surrender to wherever my body needed to be. Rebecca took my vitals as soon as she arrived and, you know, was listening to the baby and all of that. And I didn't really get any footage of that happening because I was distracted. And so was Finley, because he started filling the birth tub at this point. And so Rebecca started doing hip squeezes on me, and she was giving me nice confidence boosting affirmations. Like she would just look at me and be like, look at you, just doing it, you know? And that was really nice. And eventually she pulled a bottle of lavender massage oil out of her bag, and I was like, what is that? And she was like, it's massage oil. I was thinking I could rub you down. You lie in the bed and rest, and I'll do lots of counter pressure techniques. And she did do that, and that continued for quite some time. And that was probably like the loudest labor got for me, if I'm remembering correctly. Like I was just moaning a lot. And it also just felt like I was trying to release a bowel movement in the bed, which was an odd sensation. And so I kept asking her if it was okay that I started to feel the need to push. And also I genuinely felt like I had pooped my pants or something, because Larry was cuddling me. So I was like lying on my side and he was kind of curled in front of my body, and he kept farting on me, freaking Larold. And I was just getting gassed out, and I was like, is that me? Like, can somebody check? And so she checked for me and she was like, no worries, you didn't poop your pants. And I'm like, okay, thank God. But even if I had, like, she would have been so unfazed. She does this for a living, you know what I mean? But she just kept assuring me that my body knew exactly what to do while Finley was cuddling me in bed and playing my favorite albums. And then Rebecca called Tanya, my other midwife, to come over sometime around this phase. I don't know what time exactly. And then I told Finley to go get my mom from downstairs because I needed her to take Rebecca's place, you know, doing the counter pressure and rubbing me down, while Finley and Rebecca set up all of the birth kit and the supplies and the tub and all that kind of stuff. And I forgot to write this down in here, so I'm just gonna say it kind of anecdotally. But when you're filling a birth tub at home, you have a drinking safe hose that gets linked to a coupler and then goes onto your faucet, and you just fill it with the hot water. But the hot water tank gets empty after a while, and so then it starts running cold. And so Finley realized, like, between coming and cuddling me and like worrying about the birth tub, he was like, oh, it's a little bit cool, and I know she'll want it hotter. So he was also going going back and forth between boiling pots of water on the stove downstairs and then dumping big pots into the tub while I was just lying there. My mom was rubbing me down. I labored in bed there with my mom's comfort for probably a few more hours. Again, no concept of time. I just did that until the tub was ready for me and they brought me over there and I dropped trow. And then I think it was around like 3 a.m. that I got into the tub. And once I got in the bath, it was like a whole new world. Seriously, I felt amazing in there. And that's how my midwife, Tanya, described it, because I was like, oh my God, it feels so much better. And she was like, right? It's a whole new world. But she had arrived around when I got into the tub, and I just really was loving that hydrotherapy, man. And I definitely felt like a lot of my aching subsiding compared to how I was feeling on the bed. And Tanya kept offering me a cold washcloth compress for my face and my neck, which felt amazing in contrast to the hot water on my body, since I was still experiencing trouble regulating my body temperature. But the tub was also right next to our window AC unit, so I kept kind of like leaning over the side of the tub and moving my face towards the fan of the AC, and that felt amazing. And as for kind of birthing positions, I was oscillating between like frog legs and then like a yoga squat, and sometimes I would kind of lean back against the edge of the tub and let my limbs go loose, but I was not enjoying being on my back or really on my butt because it wasn't the most comfortable, and I preferred just like all fours positions. And I was envisioning myself getting so big for her arrival, which is something that I learned in the book Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. And speaking of like visualization and all that kind of stuff, at one point Finley asked me if I was telling myself my birth affirmations from my hypnobirthing like podcasts that I was listening to all throughout my pregnancy. And I said that I only was kind of here and there. And so he went to the window because I had pasted a bunch of my favorite ones on sticky notes in the window, and he read me every single one of them. And that gave me a great surge of power and energy. And I knew that it was not long now. And a little bit after that, Rebecca suggested that I could attach my moaning sounds to pushing sensations. And that's really like the only time that I remember her kind of saying to like push, you know? Nobody was like, push, push, push. You're gonna start pushing now. Or like other people asked after birth how long I was pushing. I was like, I have no concept of how long I was pushing for. I remember earliest sensation of wanting to push while I was in bed, and then I also continued doing that in the bath. And Finley was sitting on the side of the birth tub holding Rue, and Larry was sitting on the bed just watching me, and everybody was just kind of gathered around while we were hanging out. And we were listening to so many great albums that I literally made a playlist of them after my birth, which I'll link below if you want to listen. And I was occasionally just singing or humming and kind of swaying in the tub to loosen up. And I kept trying to remember to not scrunch up my face. Like when you push and you're like, it's like you just want to relax the muscles. Like I would literally be like, like trying to just loosen my face muscles, loosen, let my body go limp, kind of stuff like that, instead of like contracting all together. And honestly, the sensation of pushing in the water was so relieving compared to the pushing that I felt like I had to do on the bed, which felt more like I had constipation. And I felt a sort of light burning sensation in my vagina when I would push, and I made sure to continue to just breathe deeply and not rush my pushes. Like I was kind of trying to elongate them with my breath. And at one point I was doing that in a squat, and I reached down and I sort of spread my butt cheeks with my hands, and then I like reached around the front and I was like, I feel her head. And everybody was like, what? You feel her head? Because I wasn't like leaned back where, you know, people could view. And so they had no idea. They were just kind of sitting on the floor around the tub. And when I said that, I kind of like leaned back against the tub then to show them that she was really coming. And Finley was so funny and shocked that it happened so quickly. He wasn't like alarmed. He was just like, oh, I need to be ready, because he was going to catch the baby with the help of my midwife, Rebecca. So then with just like 3 or so more pushes from there and some maneuvering on Rebecca's part, because I had a short umbilical cord apparently. So they were trying to like hold her and get her out, but also my umbilical cord was kind of pulling her back in. And I remember at one point I went, is somebody pushing her back into me? Like I genuinely asked that, but it was just my body sucking her back. And then, because that's what happens during contractions, like you slowly get them down, but they do come up first during a contraction. They explained that to us in our birth class, at least, that like if you feel that sensation, nothing is wrong. It's just your body doing its thing, and you are making progress even though it feels like you're sucking her back in. But yeah, within like 3 or so pushes, she was out, and they brought her to my arms, and she was born 8 pounds 4 ounces, 4:25 a.m. like I said. So it was almost exactly 12 hours after my water broke, and Lisa Sawyer by Leon Bridges was playing in the background for her arrival. She was very chill and quiet upon coming out. She was just kind of looking around wide-eyed, and I was just, you know, tearing up while talking to her and basking in the great joy of her arrival. And we were able to cuddle her for just a little bit in the tub before we moved to the bed, because it's tough on the midwives to assess my blood loss in water, but I had very minimal bleeding, they said, and I'm just really proud of myself for, I don't know, all the things that my body did to bring her here. And I also think too, like, I spent so much time just reminding myself of my affirmations and envisioning myself like opening for my baby and all of that stuff, that it truly helped me not to tear, which was amazing for my postpartum healing. I think too, just reminding myself of my strength was so vital for me, but it was also really helpful to have other people in the room who just knew instinctually to do that. You know what I mean? Like, just supportive birth people around you is what you really need. And after moving from the birth tub to the bed, my placenta was delivered like maybe a half hour after my birth, and Finley cut the umbilical cord while we were lying in the bed cuddling her, and then they did the baby checkup and took her vitals and took my vitals once I had eaten, because I hadn't eaten since the sandwich incident. And my midwives also cleaned everything up with my mom after that. And they also drained the birth tub into the toilet with like this little pump that they have. And they made me a nourishing smoothie and a big breakfast. And I ate every last bite of that while I cuddled her skin to skin next to Finley. And it was the best day of our lives. Truly. It was so awesome. And I was describing it to my friends and family after the fact. It was just like intense breath work for multiple hours. So I was really feeling quite a head high. And yeah, I mean, just with everybody like watching you while you're doing that kind of deep meditation, it just really felt like I was being trip sat. My mom actually said after my birth too, she was like, you are such a quiet laborer, because there was no screaming or anything like that. It was just like loud moaning and humming and all that kind of stuff, focusing on relaxing all of my limbs and face. And it wasn't scary at any point, and I knew that I could do it if I just remembered to tap into my strength, I guess, and remember to tap into my relaxation, even when it's hard to relax your body. And after birth, I even turned to Finley and I said, that was so fun, I'd totally do it again. So needless to say, the oxytocin was hitting, and yeah, that's the story of Corvidia's birth. It was so beautiful, and it's an honor to be her mommy, and it was an honor to have everybody in the room with me who was there. It was just such a wonderful experience with everyone, and I really have only positive things to say about birth, which feels very privileged to have, you know, that experience. I know that not many people do, and so that's why I wanted to share it with you and just remind you that you can do the thing, okay? Your body could do it if you want to do it. I believe in you, and yeah, peaceful births are possible. So I hope this video helped maybe some of you feel more comfortable with that experience, or just piqued your curiosity and provided you some entertainment if you're not interested in birthing a baby. But that's the story of my first birth. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Stay smiling. Bye, y'all.